a dignified and respectful memorial garden to this square. This effort began when the Commander-in-Chief issued a proclamation declaring May 20th, 2012 through November 11th, 2025 as the commemoration of the 50th anniversary of the Vietnam War. While the nation began to do its part in thanking and honoring the Vietnam veterans and their families, your local American Legion decided it was time to thank those in our own community. Post 188 is proud to be a partner in the commemoration for the 50th anniversary of the Vietnam War. We will be recognizing our Vietnam War veterans a little later in the ceremony by presenting them with the Vietnam Veterans Commemorative lapel pin. We all have the rare opportunity to turn back a page in history and to right the wrong by properly thanking and honoring the Vietnam veterans and their families. This monument will stand, and the Vietnam War 50th anniversary commemoration will continue its work, and the Eaton Square Memorial Garden will be built, all to make sure that the great sacrifices of our soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marines, and Coast Guard men and Merchant Marines are never forgotten. Thank you for joining us today. I encourage everyone to take a few moments view of the monument and end the ceremony. Thank you.
Thank you. It's an honor to be here to pay tribute to the sacrifice of the men and women who served in the Vietnam War. I have a citation on behalf of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts State Senate, and this official citation reads as, "Be it known that the Massachusetts Senate hereby extends its congratulations to Clark Haddad Post 188 of the American Legion in recognition of the sacrifice made by the Sandwich community and the dedication of the Vietnam War Memorial to honor all of those who were lost in that conflict. And be it further known that the Massachusetts Senate extends its very best wishes for continued success, and that this citation be duly signed by the President of the Senate, attested to and a copy therefore transmitted by the Clerk of the Senate, signed by the President of the Massachusetts State Senate, Karen E. Spilka, attested to by the Clerk of the Senate, William F. Welsh, and offered by your very proud State Senator, Vinnie DiMacedo. Thank you and God bless.
Thank you. Good afternoon. A great turnout for this, and I'm really happy because the Clark Haddad Post of the American Legion has, this is a year long, actually more than a year ago that they started working on this. There have been a few bumps in the road, but it happened, and here it is, all the way down to the grass that was sodded on Friday. I have from the House of Representatives a citation that is signed by all of the Cape Cod representatives of the State House. Be it hereby known to all, the Massachusetts House of Representatives offers its sincerest congratulations to Clark Haddad Post 188 of the American Legion in recognition of their concept, design, approvals, and funding of the Town of Sandwich Vietnam Veterans Monument to commemorate our local veterans who served. The entire membership extends its very best wishes and expresses the hope for future good fortune and continued success in all endeavors. Given this 11th day of November 2018, signed by the Speaker of the House, Robert DeLeo, and like I said, by every member of the delegation. And I want to present this to you, Commander. And I have an Act 2. I also have brought with me a proclamation from the Governor and Lieutenant Governor and it reads as follows. Commonwealth of Massachusetts, a proclamation. Whereas, every November, people from across the nation gather to honor our veterans. And whereas, this year we celebrate the 50th anniversary of the Vietnam War era. And whereas, over 9 million Americans served on active duty during the Vietnam War era. And whereas, there are many Vietnam War veterans in the town of Sandwich who served in the Army, Navy, Marine Corps, Air Force, Coast Guard, and Merchant Marines. And whereas, we honor and salute the citizens of the town of Sandwich who served our country during the Vietnam War with a monument dedicated to them. And whereas, this monument is placed in Eaton Square to continue the legacy of William Eaton and his dedication to the veterans who served our nation. And whereas, it is appropriate that all Massachusetts citizens remember and honor the bravery of those who served our country, so that their dedication and sacrifices serve as a reminder of the cost of our freedom. Now, therefore, I, Charles D. Baker, Governor of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, do hereby proclaim November 11, 2018 to be Vietnam Veterans of the Town of Sandwich Day. And to urge all of the citizens of the Commonwealth to take cognizance of this event and participate fittingly in its observance. Given this 11th day of November in the year 2018, and of the independence of the United States of America, the 242nd, signed by the Governor, the Lieutenant Governor, and by William Francis Galvin, the Secretary of the Commonwealth. And I present this to you also, Commander.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Frank. Joining me this afternoon are my fellow board members, Vice Chairman, Mr. Michael Miller, Mrs. Dr. Susan James, Mr. Robert George, and Mr. Shane Hochter. On this day, we reflect on our veterans and active service members to recognize them and thank them for our freedoms, security, and for this great nation. To those who have served and are serving, please know your duty defending our freedoms and the sacrifices associated with upholding our core principles is always remembered. Today, we make special recognition of those who served in the Vietnam War with the dedication of this new memorial. Like all veterans, you served our country with dignity, courage, and carried out the mission you were assigned. On behalf of the residents of the town of Sandwich, thank you for your service. I would like to thank the members of American Legion Post 188 for your efforts to make this memorial possible, for organizing today's events, and for your continual devotion to our nation's veterans and service members. I would especially like to recognize Post Commander Ray Torville and a gentleman I am privileged to know and call a friend, Mr. Carl Johansson, for your significant work facilitating every aspect of this memorial and today's events. Thank you. Additionally, I would like to thank our team members from the various departments of the town of Sandwich, especially Mr. Sam Jensen, who's hiding over there, and Mr. Sean Harrington, who I have not seen. He's here, though. Thank you, gentlemen. Mr. Rob Dinan, for your work with the medallions. The Makey Monument Company. Mr. Don DiGiacomo and the team at Dirtworks for constructing this site in just over a week and ensuring its readiness for today's events. On behalf of the Board of Selectmen and the Town of Sandwich, thank you all for your efforts. Finally, thanks to each of you here today. Your presence is a tribute to our nation's heroes and their sacrifices. It is an expression of recognition for their service and demonstrates thanks to the many brave men and women who have joined us on this special occasion from near and far. Thank you, and thank you again to the many veterans here today and around the world. Thank you.
Good morning. As the town's chief record keeper, it's my honor to present this proclamation on behalf of the town of Sandwich. In the year 2018, whereas 43 years have passed since the conclusion of the Vietnam War, and whereas today we mark the dedication of a monument honoring those who served our country during the Vietnam War, and whereas through the unveiling of this monument, our community formally acknowledges and memorializes the countless sacrifices of dozens of soldiers and sailors from the town of Sandwich, Massachusetts. And whereas we recognize the importance of creating this monument to visibly express our respect and honor for those who have given so much for us. And whereas on this occasion, we express our unwavering dedication and remembrance to all members of the military who have proudly served or gave their lives in the Vietnam War. Now I, therefore, Taylor D. White, Town Clerk of Sandwich, officially acknowledge this memorial dedication to our Vietnam War veterans and urge all residents of the town of Sandwich to take cognizance of this special occasion, given this 11th day of November 2018. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for coming today. The numbers are unbelievable. Quilts of Valor was started in 2003 by a mother whose son was stationed in Iraq, and she wanted to do something to make her son and other service people understand that they're not forgotten. You will see this quilt on the monument behind me is made of patriotic colors, red, white, and blue. All quilts of valor are usually made out of these colors, because it's a symbol of our flag. More than 2,000 quilts have been awarded in US, Germany, Iraq, Afghanistan. Quilts of Valor covers warriors from all conflicts, from World War II, Korea, Vietnam, Iraq, and Afghanistan. Each quilt is handmade individually, usually by a group of quilters. This quilt was made by my brother, Donald Chase, my sister, Kathleen Chase Jones, and myself. Each quilt represents a three-part message from the receivers. We honor you for your service most of all. We know freedom is not free, and we thank you for your sacrifices. This quilt is meant to offer comfort to you and remind you that you are forever in our hearts, even if we can't wrap our arms around you. Thank you.
With all the heroes we have here today, it's hard to imagine why I'm here. The town of Sandwich had 24 young men who saw active combat service in Vietnam. They would have graduated from the Wing School sometime between the years of 1959 in 1969, when the population of this town was around 2,000 people. The graduating classes during that period of time ranged from 11 up to a total of 39. When we look at the number of young men who might have gone into the service, who graduated from Sandwich High School, during that period from 1959 to 1969, we had just about 100 young men who were possibly eligible. Over 60 of that number signed up for active duty in the service, with every possibility that they would wind up seeing active duty in Vietnam. That is an amazing number. Of that 24 who saw active duty over there, one of those young men graduated from the Sandwich High School, actually we call it the Wing School, in 1965. That was Richard Cahoon. And unfortunately, he's here, so I have to be very careful about what I say. Richard graduated in June of 1965 and signed up immediately in the Army in July. He was then sent to the Army's version of boot camp in Fort Dix, New Jersey. Shortly after that, he was sent to the Morse Intercept School. That was an intelligence school at here in Massachusetts. And shortly after that, he was put into the Army's security branch. Well, hopefully, Richie didn't pack his bags too tightly, because shortly thereafter, in May of 1966, Richie was on his way for his first tour in Vietnam. He was stationed at Phu Bai, which is about 10 miles south of the old capital city of Hue, a very, very hostile area. Richie came back to the States in April of 1967. And in the tradition of the Army at that time, he was given a choice of 3 places he would like to be stationed now that he was back in the States. Well, Richie chose Massachusetts, of course, and then he chose a base in Florida and another one in Virginia. And in true Army tradition, Richie got orders to Fort Hood, Texas. He stayed down in Fort Hood with his wife, Chris, until July of 1968, when their first son was born. Richie had 5 days to spend with his wife and his newborn son before he got his second set of orders to go to Vietnam. This time he went to Quang Tri Province first, and then was transferred up to Phu Bai to finish out his tour. He came back to the States and was retired from the Army and spent about 2 years here in Sandwich working in construction. Then he decided he wanted to become a commercial fisherman, and he went down to North Carolina, where he spent the next 30 years in that profession. He now lives in Fayetteville, North Carolina. But Richie's ties to Sandwich are very strong. His family still lives here, and they are now celebrating their 8th generation of Cahoons in the town of Sandwich. Another young man who graduated from that class in 1965 was Brian Cullity. Brian actually enlisted in the Navy when he was in high school. So 1 week after graduating, he was on his way to the Navy's version of boot camp in San Diego. After graduating from boot camp, Brian decided that he wanted to be in the Navy Medical Corps. For those of you who have been, anywhere near active combat with the Marine Corps, you know that the job of a Navy corpsman is one of the most dangerous jobs you can have in a combat situation. And Brian knew that, and he still wanted to be a Navy corpsman. He went to the Navy Medical Corps School in San Diego, and then was transferred out to a couple of different bases in Florida. And in July of 1967, he got his orders to Vietnam. His first duty station was at Na Bay on the Mekong River. And his hospital that he ran was actually on a giant-sized barge in the Mekong River. Those barges were just perfect targets for Viet Cong rocket attacks. And Brian's services there as a corpsman were sorely needed. Shortly after he is there was a nice welcoming for him with a massive Viet Cong mortar attack on the base. Brian also took time from his schedule to go out into the local area around there and give much needed medical help to the local Vietnamese. After a few months there at Na Bay, he was ordered to a slightly smaller barge up on the Cambodian border. This was again a very hostile area, and Brian's services as a corpsman were very, very sorely needed. Brian knew this all too well. And when it came time for him to be transferred back to the States in June of 1968, he told the Navy, "No, I can't leave. I've got to stay." And he was given an extension of 6 months, so he didn't come back until December of 1968. When he came back, he was released from active duty, and he actually went to Eastern Tennessee State University to major in biology. He earned his way through college by working at a local hospital and some local community centers, giving medical care. He came back to Sandwich in 1982 after being a teacher in that local area in Tennessee. From 1985 to 1995, Brian was a curator at Heritage Plantation. Brian now lives in Sagamore and has a nice active antiques business. These are just two of the very, very brave young men from Sandwich who signed up and were willing to go fight for this country in Vietnam. God bless them. And we want to God bless all of the men and women from the town of Sandwich who have fought so bravely for this country over all the years since the revolution. And may God bless America. Thank you.
Never forget, the work of the American Legion, in my mind, as a third-generation Legionnaire and post commander, is to come to terms with the past and connect it to the present. In laying this memorial today to our Vietnam veterans, we are honoring them in remembrance. That is a critically important word today, remembrance. To those who came home 40 to 50 years ago, they were made to feel awkward, ashamed, and unwelcome. Today, we make a solemn effort to memorialize these veterans' ultimate sacrifices, their service, our common belief that we are all brothers and sisters in this great land, and none of us who have come afterwards shall or will ever forget. When I first read about Post 188's need and hope for funding to help bring this worthy moment to fruition, a tear ran down my face. To me, these types of memorials are not perfunctory gestures, nor are they a glorification of bloodshed. Rather, they are the very life's blood of patriotism and are cornerstones, quite literally, of the sense of Americanism we truly need to convey to future generations so that we never forget what sacrifice truly means. No war is good. No war leaves us whole. Vietnam scarred America, but it is America that should always remember its heroes, like those who sit here with us today, and never, ever, ever forget they were willing to give their life upon the altar of freedom for the very reasons and the very things this country was built upon.
It is my honor to thank all those who helped to make this day a success. Before I begin, I must say thank you to the MCI, Dirt Works, Child Iris, and the Sandwich Park Department for the work they did in getting this site ready for today's dedication. I'd like to recognize my wife for the patience it took to understand the complexities of this mission we shared together. Our commander, Ray Turville, who asked me to take on this mission, and all of my fellow Legionnaires, brothers and sisters. They have worked nonstop on our Vietnam Committee to bring this beautiful monument designed by Legionnaire Rob Dinan before the residents of Sandwich. And I'd like to have my friend, Mr. Dinan, please stand and be recognized. It was Mr. Turville's leadership and commitment that began this mission to honor the residents of Sandwich that served during the Vietnam War period. All of the town departments that worked tirelessly, along with every town committee, in embracing what the Clark Cadet American Legion Post was attempting to do by making Eaton Town Square a place of honor in perpetuity for all veterans who served our town in all of the services they served with. I have a special note of appreciation to our town leadership for finding the time and effort and working in a cooperative and collaborative way that allowed all of the town departments and committees to become a single unit upon which we all can be proud to say that history is being made here today in Sandwich for all future generations to follow. History is being made here today to recognize the services and commitments made by the Merchant Marines. Merchant Marines being represented by the Mass Maritime Academy have graciously given us their presence here today. We have a medallion on our monument that includes the Army, Navy, Marine Corps, Air Force, and the Coast Guard, all who served and lost lives during the Vietnam War. The cadets from the Massachusetts Maritime Academy represents the Merchant Marines here with us today. An appreciation of acknowledgement goes out to the USS Constitution, the oldest commissioned naval ship, all Ironsides, having their honor guard participating on this event. The oldest town on Cape Cod, it's a fitting tribute to Sandwich's long history with the sea. And I'd like to have them recognized because they don't come across the bridge that often. To the young participants with us today from the Cub Scouts, Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, our soloist Lily Anderson, elementary choral group, high school band, Young Marines. You are all making history here today in our wonderful town. And you will have learned perhaps a little more about why it's important to recognize those who serve their country so that we all can be free men and women. The future of freedom will be in your hands, so make wise decisions and judgments. All of the honor guards in attendance here today bring a solemn meaning to our country, and at the same time pay tribute to those among us who have served that were unable to be here for this dedication. It goes without saying that each and every resident in our town provided the energy to our Vietnam committee that allowed us to see that your support and love to erect a monument to those who served from Sandwich during the Vietnam War. It was by far an overwhelming message that was contagious and felt by everyone involved to dispel the old image to total respect and love. And we all salute you for that. The news media, especially in Sandwich, especially the Sandwich Enterprise, Sandwich News, the Sandwich Scoop for all of the coverage, and the local reporters that write the news. The Barnstable Sheriff's Office, they really, for all of its assistance in helping the American Legion Post be part of an historical moment in Sandwich history. And I think they really should get a nice applause. Mr. DiMacedo, Mr. Hunt, Mr. White, for bringing us the proclamations from our local governments. Mr. X. Dexter, our guest speaker and decorated combat pilot during this time. To have Gold Star Mother, Mrs. DeConto, lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance is also a reminder of how personal it can be when a family member loses someone they love in times of unrest. Be sure to see our 9/11 display, static display, back at the post of those who lost lives during 9/11 and since. And we thank David Neal from the Barnstable Sheriff's Office for that. Today marks the beginning of the healing, yes, by all means. Today marks the beginning of the healing process here in Sandwich, and may God bless one and all for this opportunity to see history being made for the future of our town. I would like to end with the words that are inscribed on the Soldiers and Sailors Monument that you see before you that Mr. Eaton had commissioned for the Civil War Memorial. These are the words of a patriot that have even more meaning today than back when he penned them. Let us have peace. Thank you.
We give you thanks, O Lord, for the gift of these dedicated people, our volunteers, and the sculptors and artists who adorn the area with this monument, which lead to the contemplation of inspiring figures from the past and present, those that have humbly, nobly, and bravely served. May this monument honor all service members during the Vietnam era, those who bravely paid the ultimate sacrifice, those that valiantly fought, and those that stood for this great nation, ready to serve during a time of indescribable conflict, many of whom are here today. May their service inspire all of us. Thank you to all of those who serve to ensure our lives remain free. The duty of our veterans is the fiber of the word freedom and is stronger by our recognition of service and sacrifice. We honor that today and should carry it forward with our children to honor. Freedom and democracy are the result of all of the most honorable this country has produced. May the Lord bless you and keep you. May his face shine upon you and be gracious unto you. The Lord lift up his countenance upon you and give you peace. The grace of our Lord Jesus Christ be with you all. God bless you. Amen.
God bless you.